had something to tell you, and I don't remember what it was. So I guess it wasn't important.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence. For I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known. The danger of
the Watchers of Earth. 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Seth.
I am here.
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because he got shot when he was supposed to get the podcaster serum, and Seth jumped in instead of him. But our fourth co-host, Uatu, is here more than ever, but he is still sworn only to watch and never interfere, so he's going to keep that trap shut. He already had his fucking show.
So today we're going to be watching What If Captain Carter Were the First Avenger, which originally aired August 11th, 2021. When Steve Rogers is seriously injured, Peggy Carter becomes the world's first super soldier. So Andrew, in a sentence or less, what do you think?
Seth, I'm going to ask you, in a sentence or less, what did you think?
Oh, I think you know what I think, Andrew. I hate all of these.
Not even a little bit of positivity for this one?
We'll get into it, but there's a little.
I'm kind of in the same camp. I'm going to,
Then why didn't you answer first?
Well, for all of these, I want to let you go first, because my opinion is also,
stupid, wrong.
I didn't really like this episode very much the first time through, but I'm also going off of kind of like watching Loki and WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. I've already seen it, and recently, so like I've seen it as a whole, so it's hard to separate it from my holistic vision of the series. But I don't think this episode's particularly great. I think it's fun enough. It goes on too long. About the halfway point I was done. Once it basically
Isn't it crazy that a
30-minute...
We were so pumped, or I was, that it was going to be 30 minutes instead of 4 hours. But isn't it crazy that 30 minutes can feel long? That's what Kirsten and I have been saying. We've been watching all the Universal Monster movies, and they're only like an hour and 15 minutes. But damn, do they stretch out like 20 minutes of content into an hour and 15 minutes.
Once it completely divorces itself from the original movie, which I think is this thing's biggest sin, is that it's mostly just the first movie again, but like with a couple twists.
Well, and that's kind of... When I first read... I was excited for this series. I still kind of am. But when I first read the episode title of like Captain Carter Were the First Avenger, I was just kind of thinking, and kind of the first half of this was... just like, here's Captain America, but it's not Steve. Like, it hits a lot of the beats for beats. Just intermixed with some guy going, but women can't do this.
And I think, like, it's got a couple lines that are a little too cute for me. It's a little too, like, abbreviated. It just kind of, like, cuts to this or that. It's also hard cut. We're just going to talk about the episode now. So here's where I put my little thing. I've said before, and a good thing no one listens to these, so that I can't ever be taken out of context.
Oh, I always take you out of context.
Peggy is way too strong in this, but also because she's going off of the strength that late game... Actually, she's even... I don't care that she's stronger than Steve, but she's even stronger than late game Steve Rogers, who is stronger than I think Captain America should be. Because in the first movie, it felt like exactly what I always understood Captain America to be, and maybe I'm wrong, but he was always just like peak human physical capability, maybe slightly above that.
Right.
But never like we've said before, holding a helicopter down or kicking a truck or all those things. But when he does it, it's kind of grounded. It's kind of fun. It's fine. But as the movies went on, he got stronger and stronger to the point that he's basically like a superhuman, like crazy, like bench press a building sort of dude. And in this, like, it just kind of like goes off of where his power level is at the end with her, and right out the gate she's just like kicking trucks and flipping around, like picking up motorcycles and just chucking at people. There's a part where she jumps over an entire like wall in a shot that I think's cool. I think there's a lot of like, I think the animation is strong, way too much bloom, but I think the animation is
torn on
good.
The animation. I think some of it's good and some of it borders on like a Telltale game.
That's true. But I think the animation allows it to do some stuff that they wouldn't normally film because it's just a little too complicated or would have to be entirely CGI. So in this, like, it gets to be a little more fantastical. And I think that stuff is fun to watch, but it makes I think she does some of the most superhero-y stuff that we've seen in the Marvel Universe. The problem is, I just don't think Captain America or Captain Carter is the character to be doing this sort of stuff. Like, she's leaping over stuff and, like, flipping all around and picking up stuff that I don't even think Captain America, like, I don't think Steve or she should be able to pick up. And it's a little too extreme. And it's something that, like, even going back and watching, Batman the Animated Series several years ago, I sat down and watched it, and there's a part where he just like leaps 50 feet into the air and does like a flip over something, and I was like, I guess it's a comic book and I can accept it. And I know that stuff happens in comics all the time, but it was like watching it in motion, I was just like, that seems a little more than Batman should be capable. And that's what I kept thinking is like every time she did something, I was like, she just seems like she's doing a little too much. And there's even a couple points where some of the Howling Commandos, I can't remember a specific moment. It might be during the train scene, but I remember a couple times where they were doing stuff where I was like, it seems a little much. And I know it's a weird hill to die on.
No, because I'm in a weird thing where I don't have the exact same point to make, but I wanted to bring up how, I've been saying that I think, obviously people love these, obviously I don't, but I think a lot of that is me. They're fine movies, whatever. Like, are they for me? No, but, I think they're fine movies. And there's something weird when I was watching this, and I've kind of hinted on this in the last few episodes, and I think definitely with Loki I mentioned it, but I don't know why I'm so reluctant or why I can't, like, have fun watching these. Because I feel like, to tie it in with what you were saying, Captain Carter does a lot of superhero-y things, and there's a lot of joke beats, and there's a lot of flat angles to make a joke hit or something like that. And just all of them completely missed or fell flat. And I didn't know why I couldn't enjoy it. And I don't know if you felt the same or, we keep saying that like, we want comic booky things. We want comic booky things. And honestly, this is comic booky.
I will say, I don't know what, like, again, in isolation, you could say this about, I guess, any of the Marvel properties, but in isolation, there's a lot of stuff that I really like. I like the comic booky stuff. I just think it's beyond the capability of the specific superhero they chose. I like this alt-universe stuff, but I feel like it doesn't really do anything. And honestly, as the first one out of the gate, I understand why this is the one they went with. But I also think watching this the first time, this started me off on the wrong foot. Because I finished it and I went, I really hope all of these aren't just, let's take a movie and slightly alter it and truncate it into 20 minutes. Because it doesn't really do anything. Like, it does. Changing from Steve to Carter is a big change, but it doesn't really do anything. The story doesn't really change. I think it's hard to tell because of how truncated it is. It seems like she's more effective than Steve is. But
I would say that is not, and I don't think this is what you're saying, but I would say that is not the point.
No. I'm just saying, like, all the changes are so minor.
The biggest one is like Steve being in a robot suit.
Yeah, and that's also something I don't like. That's what a lot of these alt-universe stories, even in comics that I don't care for, is there's a lot of, like, stupid, cute little lines. There's, like, the thing where Bucky almost falls off the train, which is, like, a little wink and a nudge, and then when she pulls him up, he's like, you almost tore off my arm. Another wink and a nudge, and there's a couple lines like that.
Yeah, I watched a lot of those jokes. I do what I do when they feel unnatural, where I'm just like, I just imagine everyone sitting there and just be like,
Usually when people are like, yeah, it's not a, that's funny. It's, I get it. And that, honestly, those things are fine. But with the Steve thing, I said before when we were talking about Loki, that as far as the MCU is concerned, the multiverse is just diverging timelines. Which could be true of even the comic books. Like, it all just depends, like, what's the fracture point and how big is that fracture. But they're all just diverging timelines.
Well, and I was giving you a bunch of grief when you were like, Loki just needs to exist to be like, hey, look, this is a thing. You can't just tell people that, like, here's different universes. And I was kind of giving you grief on that. And when I was setting up, I was bringing up all my websites. And there is an actual plot for What If. And I was reading it. And it's just like, God damn it, Andrew was right. Like, everything has to be over-explained.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I've got a lot to say the further we get down the line on this show. But, like, even just, like, as a divergent timeline thing, I feel like it starts diverging wildly. How is the fact that Peggy goes into that thing and Steve gets shot, suddenly Howard Stark builds an Iron Man suit? Why didn't he build that anyway?
Didn't he build that before?
And the whole reason is just because Iron Man is a thing we know. And so, like, of course his dad would build it.
I think some of it, too, is also we have an animation budget that we can do a little bit more fancier things with.
But they would have never done that in the movie anyway.
Because it's not part of the...
Yeah, but it's just like a weird thing. And it's, to be fair, a thing that kind of plays with this is Marvel 1602 by Neil Gaiman. And one of the Kubert brothers, I think it's Andy. as the art. He has a thing where, spoilers for 1602, it's a world where everybody in the Marvel Universe basically starts existing centuries before they're supposed to in the year 1602.
Yeah, I guess spoilers for 1602, but also read it. It's good.
It's very good.
If it still holds up after the last time I read it, which was probably 10 years ago.
I read it like a year or two ago, and it still held up fairly well. But spoilers for it, you learn that there is a white-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Native American man named Rojas, who is actually Steve Rogers. And he's actually Steve Rogers sent back in time. And basically, his existence in the past is a catalyst where the universe basically, the law of that book is that the universe will always create these heroes. So if one of them exists earlier than the others, the rest of them will just start to form around him. And that's why 1602 happens and why all these characters exist in 1602 is because he was sent backwards in time, and then the universe basically just self-corrects to make sure that everybody still exists around him. And it's like a fun little twist, and it's a fun little like self-awareness as to what these stories usually are. But that's what this feels like, where they just like kind of throw things in. And granted, we're going off of one episode. I've seen all of them. They're different levels of this, but I also think I think this is one of the weaker episodes. I think it's interesting enough for the most part, but I think just structurally it's weaker. It relies upon you having seen the original movie. I think it probably stands enough that you can follow what's going on its own, but it expects you to know.
I think it's a lot of I think you'd be able to follow it without watching Captain America.
I think it gives you the information for its plot, but I don't think
it's also
means
just
anything.
like set pieces.
Yeah. It's so heavily structured around your knowledge and your investment in the original story and this universe in order for it to work, that I think the whole thing falls flat. I think there's a lot of fun stuff. I think there's some fun action bits. That part where she's flying on the Hydra Smasher's back and like smashes through a plane and all that stuff is fun, but it's
ultimately
nothing
without any substance. And comparing it to 1602 is something that and even, comic what if stories and strange tales and stuff like that. I think, and I know I've said this before, that there's just something about the Marvel Cinematic Universe that it just doesn't work for me. And the only thing I can kind of put my finger on, and this is going to make me sound like a terrible person, is that it's just too big. I can't look past what it is in the world. I can read a comic book and get immersed. And I can read 1602 and do the things that this is wanting me to do, where I say, oh my gosh, look, that's Iceman and that's Magneto, and oh, that's interesting, yeah,
And I think part of the thing is 1602 is its own self-contained thing, but nothing in the Marvel Universe is self-contained. Even the stuff that is self-contained is not self-contained. It all exists as part of the holistic entity of the MCU, and I think that's what makes all of this weaker. And I think a what if universe show is fun. The problem is it's what if the MCU. And so there's not so many risks that they can really take. It's mostly just let's take this movie and change things. And I mean, I'll give it some credit. I've seen them all. There are a couple not risks, but there are a couple divergences that aren't just let's remix this movie. But for the most part, if this got a season 2, there's 8 episodes to this season?
I thought 9, but
9. So if it got a season 2, I'm interested in it, but where do you go? You're going to run out of movies fast. And
I mean, you're right. It's just the MCU. I've seen a ton of comic book stuff between movies and TV shows. You mentioned Batman the Animated Series or Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't know, all that to me has character. And all this, it's so corporate to me.
This feels, every single bit of this, there are characters in this. I'm not going to deny that meager truth. But all of it feels like it's smiling and saying, remember. Remember you like this guy. It's Sebastian Stan again. You guys like him. Look at him. Now he's animated.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just what story are you really telling? And, I just don't. At least this first one, which again, you admitted is...
I think this is one of the weaker ones.
And it's something that's just I think it's fair to sit down with a what if and say, what was the point? And honestly be fine with the answer of, well, it's just what if. That's the point.
And I guess, with WandaVision, I said, there's a fun experiment in WandaVision. It was doing something. In the end, the holistic product of it is, Marvel muck. But, there was an experiment. There was, a fun, let's try and emulate sitcoms that It was trying something. And in this, like, you could say, like, it's trying, like, let's have some fun with our universe. But in the end, it doesn't feel like it's really doing anything. It doesn't feel like it has anything to say. It doesn't feel like it has anything to really show. Like I said, there's some fun set pieces, but...
And like you said, there's 28 stories in the Marvel universe, or in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I complain that, there's all this stuff and everything needs to tie together and stuff like that. And honestly, I think because everything needs to tie together, it doesn't feel expansive. Everything feels so close.
It's like Star Wars. The more they expand and add more stuff, and the more it calls back to everything else, the smaller everything feels.
A What If in, like, the comics has tons of stuff. You can get into X-Men, you can get into Spider-Man, you can get into Avengers, you can get into Fantastic Four, you can do all this stuff.
And I think the big thing with What If as well is, like, you're right, there are, like, tons of places that you can go for, but the original What If, you could kind of do anything. There was one that was literally like, what if Spider-Man wore a cape? And... you can kind of go anywhere with it, whereas in this, it feels like...
everything has to be focus grouped, everything has to be...
I don't even know if, like, focus groups, yes, but I mean, the MCU is so small and so insular that, like, what can you do other than remix the movies? Like, they can't do anything that they might want to do for a movie, so it's not like they can really adapt a comic plot or something, because someone may want to do that down the line, or they might have plans to, like, they don't want to have MODOK show up because maybe there's plans for MODOK somewhere. So everything is just like only what has already shown and just like twist it slightly, and that's it. And like I'll give it credit, there's a couple things in here that like switch up a little more than that, but like even those are like kind of...
well, I saw there was like a Marvel Zombies, which I think is a fine what if option. And it's just something that, like, I don't know, I guess only really paying attention to, what I saw just booting up this episode and then bringing up the page and stuff. Like, I don't know, I guess I don't want, like, what if this character, but not. I want, like, I mean, I never really read Marvel Zombies or cared, but at least you can do a lot with that. Same thing with, like, Marvel Apes or something like that. Like, make big changes. Don't just do this small thing where it's like, of course the ripple effect and Steve getting into the thing is a huge thing, but in the girth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's very small.
Well, I mean, again, some of these take bigger risks with bigger repercussions, but, I mean, they're all one-and-done stories, but...
like, give me what if Hydra wins World War II? Like, what if Hydra defeats... like, that's way more interesting, and then you can deal with...
the big thing with this is, like, sure, Steve puts on a Iron Man suit and Peggy is a super soldier. But like in the end, for the most part, until a squid shows up, we're basically just follow the same movie. It's just different people in front of the camera.
That's what I was saying. Like the first half is so obnoxious when she, with all like the, but you're a girl jokes. And it's just like, I'm just watching Captain America, but every now and then somebody just pipes up and is just like,
instead
but
of
she's
saying
a
you're
girl.
scrawny, they say you're a lady.
Yeah. Like, ugh.
I don't know. I do like that it ends with her getting sucked into the Tesseract portal and showing up in Avengers. Not that specific thing, but that's just what I said should have happened instead of Steve freezing in ice. The freezing in ice thing I thought was, they had an easy out with the Tesseract and its powers, and instead they
That's the most comic booky thing that's ever happened in these movies, is Steve getting frozen in ice.
I don't know about comic booky. I think it's the most unbelievable thing to happen. But I mean, yeah, I don't think it really does anything. I don't think it really says anything. I think it's inoffensive. Like, in the end, it's fine, and I could say it's fun. When I say it's one of the weaker episodes, I'm mostly talking structurally. I think, in the end, it's probably one of the more interesting ones just by its individual pieces.
Oh, boy.
But I just think structurally it is one of the weakest, because it's held up with toothpicks in your faith in the original material. Whether that can carry it or not, basically, is whether this survives. And don't read too much into what I just said, but like, I think some of these, I'm not gonna say too much about later episodes until we get to them. I can't wait until we're both like fully caught up, and then I don't have to like hold my tongue every once in a while, so I don't like either lead you somewhere or just like speak too soon or argue something that hasn't happened yet.
If it makes you feel any better, you probably can't lead me somewhere, since I think I am so far down in the hate hole. I don't know what the MCU could do.
Well, with this, I feel like, I'm going to tell you right now, I have a lot of negative things to say about What If in general, and I feel like that's just going to be like, I'm going to sit down and just like, I'm already not going to like it because Andrew doesn't like it. Whether that's your thought or not, it's going to be there in your brain.
That's already there in my brain, is to sit down. I mean, I was fine with this, and then I watched like 5 minutes of it, and I went, I knew it. I knew this is where I would be. And it doesn't help like, I think we said with Loki that was kind of the first time I really didn't have put-ups. And I'm, like, hoping that regardless of what these turn out to be, I mean, at least we had, like, 2.5 hours to find put-ups somewhere. This is, like, 30 minutes to find put-ups somewhere. And I'm just like, oh, no.
Yeah, and like I said, since this basically follows the structure of the original movie, there's not really...
Which I didn't care for that much.
But I'm saying, like, when we did Power Rangers and we watched, like we had said before, like, we watched, 20-minute episodes and then talked about them for like an hour and a half. But with this, like, there's not really much to say plot-wise. It is, if you saw the movie or listened to our episode talking about the movie, you basically know what happens here. Just instead of saying he's so scrawny, you say she's so lady. And then at the end, they fight a tentacle monster instead. Which, I don't know how I feel about. I hated all the sci-fi stuff in the first one, and I kind of like Hydra doing weird magic shit, but I guess it's too little too late for me now, and I just hated. The tentacle monster was just boring and stupid. I did like that when she had a sword. You
mentioned that they fight a tentacle monster, and, like, that's not wrong, but they don't.
The tentacle monster shows up, and then she, towards the end, like, slashes at a couple of its tentacles with a sword, and then she pushes it into a blue portal. Screen. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they, like, why do we have to see the train? Because we know the train exists?
Yeah, and
I guess can have
to be fair, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what it thinks it's accomplishing. Is the train is where Steve loses Bucky, and the train is where Peggy loses Steve. But then Steve doesn't matter because he's fine. Hydra just has him. So there's not even a consequence there. But that's what it is. That's the beat in the movie when the hero has their fall, they lose their friend, and then they go in for revenge. But in this one, it's like, I don't know, 14 minutes into the 22-minute feature, and then like 3 minutes later, we learn that Steve's still alive. So it doesn't matter. And it's not like he serves a purpose at the end. It's only because she still has, they wanted to have that, like, it's like poetry, it rhymes. They wanted to have that bit where she loses someone like Steve lost someone, but then they're also like, but we also have to have the bit at the end where she tells Steve that they're going to have that dance. Because that's the thing from the movie.
Yeah, like,
so he has to still be okay.
Why not just let it be its own thing? Why make it its own? Why make it just a rehash of the first Captain America?
Because that's what are they afraid of doing? I mean, this is the one that most follows the structure of another movie. I mean, I'll give it. That's why I'm saying, like, this is one of the weaker ones structure-wise. This is the one that I think is most hindered by another movie. All the other ones break free somewhere or divert into something for better or for worse. I mean, like I said, this one is just Captain America again with a different person, and that makes it boring.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Mm-mm. I mean, I try not to be the guy that just hates things that are popular. And I mean, hey, we've talked ad nauseum about what exactly it is I don't like about these films or this universe. But there is a part of me that's still just like me sitting here kicking and screaming and just being like, this is just popular. And I can't look past watching these knowing people enjoy them. I think
part of the problem, and this is going to sound super elitist.
Oh, I just told you that you can't sound more elitist than me, who just said that I hate that people enjoy these.
Well, like, I was going to say, I feel like the popularity is the problem because that's what's holding it back. It doesn't have to take any risks. It is going to succeed because it is what it is. It doesn't have to take risks. It just has to continue pumping out the same shit. And that's why all of these movies start feeling the same, is because they don't need to take risks. Why? When you're going to make $1 billion zillion, why risk the chance to not get that billion in there and only make $1 zillion? It's
the problem of, I mean, I'm going to say it. Cinematic universes in general.
Cinematic universes as they exist.
Yeah. I mean, well, to compare it to, like, comic book universes, I don't care who is, editor-in-chief at Marvel or DC or wherever, they're basically just running the events. One, you're going to have out-of-universe stories anyways, because there's like 50 books on a shelf each month. Two, editor-in-chief probably doesn't care too much about what's going on in East Bumfuck X-Men. Well, they probably do, because X-Men's big, but like East Bumfuck Blade. So Blade can kind of, you can have some creative integrity, and somebody is just sitting there and they're like, I really want to write this Blade story, and I got this artist that really wants to draw this Blade story, and it's going to be baller, and it probably is. But the MCU is the same problem that the Marvel Comics universe has with its events, is that it is too designed by committee, too focus grouped, too sterile. It's so hard to look past that for me. it's so hard to look past just I don't want to say lack of creativity, because, I mean, obviously I'm sure people will want to tell these stories, and they're rated well. I don't think they're telling bad stories. It's just something that I feel like everything has to go through so much nitpick and so much, I was looking at people posting stuff with the making of book, and it just feels like there's so much, like, somebody wanted to write like Romeo and Juliet, like Thor and Jane's story, and they're just like, no. And somebody wanted, like, Wasp was going to be like a major part of Civil War, I think, and they're just like, no. And there's probably fine reasons for that stuff, but it's just one of those things to me where, and I'm not saying those would have been better movies than what we got,
but when you hear what gets turned down, you're just like, it sounds like every idea that is risky or interesting or like trying something,
or not even that, just it's all stilted by what Kevin Feige has
110% creative control.
Yeah, so this is just his Marvel Cinematic Universe. Might as well put Kevin Feige's Marvel Cinematic Universe on it, because he can veto whatever. And same thing, like Joss Whedon had all that power, and he can veto whatever. And it's just, it becomes a thing where you get the instance of, like, Wright's Ant-Man, where it's just like, who knows what that could have also been a terrible movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it's just something that, like, not only does me knowing that everything was quashed and you have to go through rewrites and you have to do this and you have to do that because, like, it's not MCU enough, we got to fit it into 8 more movies, that doesn't just affect my opinion of Ant-Man, that affects my opinion of the rest of the cinematic universe. Because I sit there and I'm just like, what's not there? It's why everything feels sterile and corporate and focus grouped and designed by committee to me, is because it has to go through checklists.
You and I had a conversation a million billion years ago.
Because we're watchers.
Like 2 or 3 apartments ago for me. We had a conversation, I remember, about the Dark Universe.
About the Universal Dark Universe?
Yeah. A long time ago, we had a conversation about the Dark Universe and how, like, it could be fun in theory if it was just, like, connected movies that didn't have to come together, but just, like, shared elements or characters.
They're not telling a greater story than themselves. They feel connected because characters are involved.
And how interesting would it be to have, like, a Marvel Universe movie that, like, okay, back in the day they had, what was her name? She became Hellcat. She was something else, like, what's her name? Patty something? Whatever her name is. She had a book called, like, It's Patty or something. And it was like, she was a model. And it was just a modeling book. But somewhere down the line, someone took that character and, like, made her into a superhero called Hellcat.
Oh, yeah.
But her book was not a superhero book. And I don't even think it took place necessarily in the Marvel Universe. It's just, like, later down the line, she became a Marvel Universe character. How interesting would it be to have, like, a Marvel book or a Marvel movie that is just a rom-com? And, like, maybe there are, like, references to the Avengers, not necessarily, like, specific ones, but just, like, it takes place in the world very clearly.
So obviously these people will be involved. Yeah, like...
Or just, like, it's a rom-com that takes place in the world where the blip happened. And it's like someone trying to date after being out of the world for 5 years during the blip or something. And not all of these movies have to relate to Marvel stuff. I'm just saying, like, that's a way to utilize the Marvel Universe for a different type of story. Like, there's all this stuff where they're like, Doctor Strange is more of a horror movie. But I saw something recently about the new Doctor Strange movie having rewrites and reshoots going on. And it's like, there they go. They're scrubbing it clean of the Raimi stuff. And I'm not even a Raimi fan. But, like, you gotta homogenize it. You gotta sand off all the edges and make it like everything else. And, like, what if we just did a horror movie? Do fucking Blade or Werewolf by Night and just, like, make a straight up horror movie that just happens to take place in the same universe as this other stuff. Do a fucking stupid, quote unquote, I hate stoner comedies, but like a stupid stoner comedy. That's just like a dumb adult comedy bullshit thing, or even like just a children's comedy that just takes place in the same universe as this stuff.
It's funny because Logan was a huge film when it came out. And, like, that's more of what the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or, like, cinematic universes in general should go for, which is just kind of like, you use the characters as kind of shorthand in instances. And you know who they are because you've seen them in other things.
That's kind of what DC is doing now, but DC is doing, like, this weird, like,
struggle.
It's like a universe when it is and it isn't when it isn't, and that's fine. But I'm saying, like, go full board. Like, it is a shared universe, but not everything's a superhero thing. Not everything's the same fucking movie. Not everything has to end in a CGI army battle at the end with a million things going on. Just
give me a legal drama with Daredevil in
She-Hulk.
Or She-Hulk. Yeah, give me fucking... Yeah, I mean, if She-Hulk's going to be the next thing, yeah, give me, like, Alias with She-Hulk.
I mean, like I said, like do a rom-com with someone who just, you can still have the Marvel universe going on. Like, you know, maybe
Do
they go
rom-com
on a
with
date.
fucking Foggy. Or not Foggy.
Sure, but
Tony
I'm saying,
Stark's
like,
Foggy.
don't even connect it to other, like, don't even have other fucking people, like, just, these people go on a date in New York, but in the middle of it, there's, like, a superhero battle that goes on during their first date or something. But these people aren't even, like, related to a hero anywhere. Like, I'm just saying, like, just do something with this. But instead, they're all the same crap. Every movie needs to be tied to the next one, and they all need to be a big end-of-the-world thing. Everything is a thing now, and it's just exhausting. And I can't wait to edit all this and figure out where to put it in before the crap when we just, like, kept talking after the mics were turned off. But it's just exhausting.
No, I would even let it go a little further and just be like, I don't care if he's the same character. Like,
sure, I'm saying, like, I'm not saying, like, don't do that. I'm just saying, like, you could just have it exist in the universe. Like, you don't need to have it be like, you know, Tony Stark's best friend doing X. It could just be like someone who lives in the Marvel universe, because books like that exist. Comic books like that do exist. Books that are not superhero books that contain characters that aren't related to heroes but still exist within the Marvel universe. They usually get canceled or they're miniseries, but
what's the one? Gotham
Academy?
No, it's the police one.
Oh, Gotham Central.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example. But I was thinking also Gotham Academy, although Gotham Academy towards the end does start getting more and more into Batman stuff, when before it was just like, this is a weird, creepy school that takes place in Gotham.
Oh, well, indeed.
Seth, give me 2 put-ups and a put-down.
Andrew, I don't think I can. My first put-up is going to be, I liked I just said it doesn't do anything, but I like that Nazi occultism, bring out the squid, do the old Watchman-aroo. I wish they would have done something with that.
I wish they would have done something with anything.
Like, I don't know, we didn't get that stuff in Captain America, so, like, that should have been this story. Is Red Skull doing, like, the occultism stuff and bringing in elder gods.
If that had been the focus, if that was like... Because I think the divergence in this is also kind of stupid. I forgot. I got kind of so bored with the episode that I kind of forgot. The divergence is that she doesn't leave the room when Steve goes into the thing. And I don't remember. I think she sees something when she's like standing up in the balcony.
She sees
thing.
the bomber.
Yeah, so she's able to stop him. Whereas in this, she doesn't see him until too late. But Steve gets shot. And then they're like, we got to put him in the machine now or else it'll never happen. And then she's like, he can't go in. And I'm like, lady, he's dying.
This is the best time for him to go in.
Maybe this will heal him. But whatever. But like, that's the divergence. And I wonder if like, maybe if it was instead Johann Schmidt, Red Skull, like goes full on occultist. Like maybe the divergent point is he can't find the Tesseract. And so instead he goes searching in the occult. Or maybe he finds the Tesseract, but something like he opens a portal to the Elder God crap. Then just kind of
that's what I said. Give me that. Give me this, like...
Go whole hog with that. And then that somehow like ripples time and then she ends up in the thing because of this or that.
Hydra, like, wins the war. What if Hydra wins the war? Way more interesting. My second put up is going to be, I think, like I said... There were times where I agree with you that there's crazy bloom and contrast. And I think the animation is honestly hit or miss with me. But I think a lot of like the fight choreography is interesting. I know you have a problem with it with more than superhuman feats. But I think some of the fight choreography is fun. And in a different show, I would enjoy it. I hate to say it, that like if the MCU name wasn't on this, I honestly might enjoy it more. If this was just an episode of like a Marvel What If show, then whatever. But it's like this MCU thing that I know people love unabashedly, and that's great. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, why? What is? I mean, we talk about this all the time, so there's stuff to say. But like, what is there to say? I am one small voice screaming into the aether of just people that unabashedly love this, regardless of what happens. My put down is going to be that this is just, they don't do anything with this. There's no interesting, like we said, it's Captain America, the first movie, but instead of saying he's so scrawny, they say she's so lady. And that's it. And that's an incredibly uninteresting what if.
My first put up is also the action beats. I think they're fun. I think they're animated well. I think there's some good shots. Like I hate when she jumps over that wall because I don't think she should be able to jump that high. But when she jumps over the wall and then she's like silhouetted against the moon, I think that's a really cool shot. There's like some good moving camera stuff right after she lands from that jump. She like takes out a bunch of guards and is flinging her shield around and stuff. And when she flies on the back of Steve and goes through a plane and everything, I think all that stuff is a lot of fun and stuff that you're never going to see in the movies because it's too hard to film, too complicated. My second put up is, I don't know, I like the occult stuff and I like Peggy with a sword. They're both very small things and they're both the same scene mostly, so I don't like the occult stuff in this, but I like the occult stuff in theory, and I like her with a sword, and if she would just like keep a sword forever, that's another thing that makes her a little different. Nothing different enough, but different.
What if
and I mean, I
Captain
like Peggy
America
as,
was Wonder Woman?
And I mean, I like Peggy as a super soldier. It's just they don't do anything. It's just kind of bland. Also, when she says like when the one guy is like, "You're an agent. This is above your pay grade or whatever," and she's like, "I guess you should promote me. Captain sounds good." And I was like, "You could go higher than captain. You could definitely go higher than captain. Captain is a very low rank for even Steve."
What about Grand Inquisitor Peggy or Carter?
My put down is just how like nothing this is. How truncated it is, how much it doesn't stand on its own 2 feet. It really relies on you having seen the original movie. It doesn't really diverge enough to be interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff you could do with Peggy as, I keep wanting to say Captain America, but she's not because she's not American, but
Captain Peggy Carter.
There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do with Peggy as a super soldier, and it just doesn't. Because it just does what Steve did, just with the heightened reality of being animation. Because even that stuff that I didn't care for where she's like flinging stuff around and stuff, they wouldn't do that in the movie because it's too complicated to CGI. They only do it because it's an animation, and like if they were to do Captain America in animation, he absolutely would have been flinging tanks around and stuff, and I would have had the same problem where I just don't think that's in his power set. But they don't do anything with it. It's so nothing, and the only divergences it really makes are the Steve thing, which is nothing, with him having an Iron Man suit, and the Hydra occultism stuff, which is nothing. In the end, it's the same as like her fighting Red Skull, and he's just opening a portal with the tentacles don't matter. They're just a thing keeping them from being able to close the portal. It could have just been like he opens a portal and it's like a black hole sucking everything in, and they gotta hang on to the control console to shut it down as it's sucking them in. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that like Peggy and Steve are very similar characters.
Yes.
So it would at least, if you're going to do this stupid thing, which you've said that they don't really do, but if you're going to do this stupid thing where it's just like, what if character was character? At least do something that's like different. Like,
well, then you might like the next one.
I'm not. Stop saying that.
I mean, you're not going to. But I'm just saying that one is what if character was character.
Passion of the Christ Resurrection news.
What?
There's a sequel to the Passion of the Christ.
Oh, well, great.
That's where I'm at right now. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with interference.
Watcher. Two.
Seth, now that the mics are off, what are we watching next?
Well, Andrew, I'm glad you asked. We're going to be watching What If Chala Was a Star-Lord, in which I assume Chala is a Star-Lord.
I don't know. Seems a little on the nose. Probably not it.
Well, after watching this one, I mean, people love Guardians of the Galaxy.
They do.
We're going to get Baby Groot, because people know and like that. Am I right?
I honestly don't remember if Groot is in this at all.
We're going to get Chala, and he's going to be like, Baby Groot. And he's going to do a little dance. I'm going to sit there, and I'm going to roll my eyes so far in the back of my head. And some guy is going to sit there and go,
You're going to feel it in your soul.
It's going to be in my bones. I'm going to feel gross. I feel bad that I just, like, immediately hate these. And a lot of it is just because it's the MCU.